All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our continued BUCHI webinar series. Today's webinar is entitled Tips for Use and Proper Care of Your B290 Spray Dryer. Just so that we're all on the same even playing field, I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Debbie Repko. I am the Application and Technical Support Manager from BUCHI Corporation, and have been working in the area of spray drying encapsulation for many years. So the webinar itself is a culmination of things that I see and hear on a daily, weekly basis, a little bit of self-defense, and certainly and mostly to help all of you as end users. So that we're all on the same page, I'd like to start with principles of drying. I'll hit on the hardware of the system itself, tips of just common issues that you're going to see along throughout the entire webinar. We're going to talk about adjusting the feed pump, proper care of your nozzle and proper use, filter care and cleaning, how to clean the glassware, how to clean your aspirator, and just overall proper maintenance of the dryer. And then we'll hit on closed mode operation. We're going to do questions at the end. If for some reason I don't get to your questions, please don't be offended. Maybe this isn't the proper venue to do it, or we just ran out of time, and we'll collect all the questions and get back to you. For supporting documentation, I have uploaded the most recent manual. It's version N, and throughout the presentation, there'll be footnotes with pages on the manual for you to follow up. I have uploaded already a PDF of this presentation and 2 additional handouts on how to clean the aspirator and the inner loop itself. Okay, let's get started. So just as by way to bring us all up to speed, we sell equipment for spray drying and encapsulation, and it's really all about particle size or particle engineering. We have a nano spray dryer that can create particles as small as 200 nanometers up to 5 microns. Then we move into the mini spray dryer, which we will be concentrating on today. The traditional nozzle will do to 2 to 25. We can go to larger particles with an ultrasonic nozzle. And then we move into our encapsulators, and they make beads or core shell capsules from hydrogel materials in the range of 80 microns up to several millimeters. Okay. The spray drying process is the same no matter what we do. Okay. We have our formulation that we're going to bring into an atomizing nozzle. We have our glassware, and we're bringing in forced hot air to a given temperature or inlet temperature. We're going to spray the nozzle into the drying chamber, and that's going to give us our resulting outlet temperature. That's the temperature of which the particles are being exposed to. The dried particles make their way through into a cyclone separator, and if they're not sticky, we'll see a vortex of material, and they're going to make their way into a collection vessel. At this point, we have cooler air, and it goes into an outlet filter with the fine particles out to the aspirator motor, and that is our working guts of the instrument, so to speak. Okay, and we're going to hit on all these going forward. Our spray dryer is a traditional spray dryer. It has a co-current flow. All of BUCHI's equipment is integrated with glass so that it's visual. We can see what's going on. We have a traditional cyclone separator, and max feed rate is 1 liter an hour. Minimum sample size would be about 50 mils. Again, I'm touching on particle size 2 to 20 and up to 60. The maximum inlet temperature is 220 degrees Celsius, which is pretty hot. Residence time, how quickly does this wet droplet become a dry particle? And that is within several seconds. Okay, now we're going to move into the hardware. It comes equipped with a simple peristaltic pump that can rotate and bring in liquid from 1 mil to 30 mils per minute. It has an adjustable bed depth. Here we're showing a picture of a person, and they actually are holding an Allen key, and they are adjusting this bed depth a little bit, and we'll go into it a little bit further. Your feed rate is your limiting rate, okay? And you need a little hose adapter. If you don't have one, here's the part number, and this helps keep the feed tube in place. To adjust the peristaltic pump, if you had it professionally installed upon installation, it should be good to go. If not, this is something that you should do from time to time, especially when you change the tube. So 1 is the tubing, 2 is the handle for the pump. It is at 3 o'clock. That is open. When you adjust the pump, you should turn this to 9 o'clock, okay? We're gonna put the tubing in some water. We're gonna turn the Q flow on, number 4, to about 40 millimeters of height. And we're gonna take the Allen key and we're gonna turn it so that we see the spray stop. When it's closed, you're gonna see back pressure coming through, and we're gonna counter adjust it until it stops and we no longer see feeding. Our nozzle is a 2-fluid nozzle. It's completely made out of stainless steel. It has several different ports. 1 is your feed, 1 is your gas, and it has 2 for cooling, cooling in, cooling out, and then 1 for nozzle cleaning at the top. If you feel gas coming out of your cooling in and cooling out, that means that you have misaligned the gas pipe that sits within this nozzle body, and you probably need to have the nozzle serviced. This is quite frankly the most important part of the whole system. If you don't have a proper working nozzle, you are not spray drying. Your nozzle should be taken apart, as you've seen here. This is just pulled from the manual itself. The nozzle cleaning tip should come out of the nozzle body. You do not want to open this piece. The unit would have come with the cleaning brush. If you don't have one, you can order one, and it fits right inside the nozzle body all the way through. I think your best defense is to always start a run with water. Make sure that you have a nice atomizing cone. It's not spraying, hitting the drying cylinder one way or another. And then you always end a run with water or solvent so that you're rinsing out the product that you just spray dried, that the dryer isn't cooling down and cooking what's inside of it. The outside of the nozzle body is printed, do not open. So unfortunately, I think what happens is a lot of people never take the nozzle out of the dryer to clean it, but please take it apart as it's seen here. We also recently recorded a nice video on how to properly take the nozzle apart and clean it, and we will release that after this webinar. Our service depot offers nozzle rebuilds. You can send it in to us. They will change all the O-rings, they'll properly clean it, they'll replace that gas pipe if it's been misaligned. It's about $1,000 with a non-refundable $100 assessment fee, compared to a new nozzle, which is a little more than $2,500. However, if you look at the cost of the dryer, this is not that much money, and I would certainly consider having a backup. We also offer nozzle exchange sets for more of ease of use for more viscous solutions or heavier suspensions, and these fit right on to the standard nozzle itself. So the standard nozzle, when we talk in terms of the feed tip, it's 0.7 millimeters. We have an exchange set that comes with the needle, the tip, and the cap. That's 1.4 and a 2.0. And this would just expand your capabilities from a formulation standpoint. Conversion charts. Our instrument does not show full values for some of the settings. So for instance, the Q flow meter, which sits in the front, which adjusts your gas, is in millimeters of height, which is converted to liters of gas per hour. The higher I go in liters of gas per hour, the smaller my droplet size. The aspirator is set from 50% to 100%, which translates to 20 to 35 cubic meters per hour. And as I mentioned earlier, the peristaltic pump also is in percent, but translates to 1 to 30 milliliters per minute. We offer 2 cyclones. What comes with the system is just a standard cyclone, and it comes with a 1 liter collection vessel. The high performance cyclone is about 1/3 of the size and comes with a smaller collection vessel, which allows for ease of use if I'm using 15 grams of solid or less. The inside of the cyclone has an anti-static discharge coating for static. However, if I have something that's very sticky, it's not going to be unstuck. So to remove it, we recommend a disposable spatula. They're basically plastic. Okay, they kind of look like a Slurpee straw, and they work very nicely for you to remove the product. We say anything on the right-hand side of the product from the cyclone on over is fair game. So cleaning of the glassware. And anybody who's done spray drying knows that it definitely takes a little time and effort to clean up. So we need to prepare our area well, because we also have very large pieces of glassware. So I recommend that you put a nice mat in your sink. You should consider having proper cleaning brushes, meaning one that's long enough to fit into the drying cylinder and the proper diameter to fit into the sides of the cyclone in the drying cylinder. A nice tip that works for me over the years is to use a plastic or a disposable beaker to put the end of the cyclone in, where this is the one that for using the aqueous, that's where the separation flask fits on. And that just gives you a nice kind of anchoring point. You want to use standard lab soap. You may, if you're using a sticky biopolymer from solvent, you may have to soak it in solvent. That's fine as well. The cyclone, if you've been spray drying, sometimes you know you get leftover product as a target spot on the back side. I usually just put the whole end right into an ultrasonic bath, and it cleans it up very quickly and very nicely. Just a tip, I would say I do not take the cyclone apart, meaning I don't remove the flange or the gasket. I don't think it's really necessary to do so unless you've really made a real mess of it. Otherwise, it's more difficult to put on and off. We're going to move to the back side of the dryer and move to the outlet filter. This is the only accessory that we sort of insist upon during the time of purchase, so I hope everybody has one. And this is going to protect the blower motor in the back or the aspirator, and certainly your lab, and minimize your exposure. I'm going to point out that the outlet filter is really only collecting fine particles, okay? It's going to allow you to measure the pressure drop over the system and let you know that it's time to change the filter. And I'll get a little further into that. The filters can be washed and reused. They are sold as a single or a box of 6. And yes, they have a lifespan. Eventually, they're going to get so impregnated with product, especially if you're using organic solvent, where they just need to be thrown away. I think a good rule of thumb is to change the filter, wash and change the filter at the end of a product set, meaning, at the end of the day or the next morning. Certainly, if you are using potent compounds or have excess product on that filter, consider, definitely using proper PPE, maybe working in a fume hood. And if you need to dispose of this versus washing it, that's, obviously a good thing to do. And just pointing out, this filter is capturing your powder and not your vapor phase. So the vapor phase could get kind of jammed around the inside of the filter as the vapor phase is going out. So if you don't change this, it can become solidified and hardened on there. We also have come up with a nice video for the outlet filter, which will also be released. If you haven't maintained your filter and the lid is stuck, a strap wrench to loosen the lid itself. But again, once again, please use proper PPE, leather gloves, so that you don't cut yourself. So keeping with the filter has a manometer gauge that measures the pressure drop. A clean filter is going to be somewhere in the range of 40 to 60 negative millibars. If something is, the cleaner it is, the tighter it is, the lower it is. As your filter gets more and more dirty, you're going to get a greater pressure drop over the system. My rule is I typically change it at about negative 85. I will say when you're working with the inner loop, in closed mode, the system is going to lock you out if you're at a little over 90, negative 90 millibar. The aspirator motor is sort of the guts of the instrument. It sits in the back. This is what pulls in the forced hot air over the heater, or what helps recirculate nitrogen in closed mode. You're typically going to run this at 100%. You want as much forced hot air and as much drying capacity as you can get. And the aspirator can be cleaned and probably should be cleaned at least every quarter or every 6 months, depending upon your usage. So as I pointed out, and again in this picture, your fine particles are going to go to the outlet filter, but your free vapor phases, so let's say I have something that's very sticky, like something of high sugar content, or something with low molecular weight, or something that I haven't encapsulated appropriately, that vapor phase is going to build up in this aspirator over time. And I've seen some dirty aspirators. So if you're blowing a fuse or you're having a hard time with pressure drop over the system, it's probably time to clean it. So to clean the aspirator, what we're going to do is we're going to prepare a solution of warm soapy water, probably not tons of soap, but enough soap. And I think you can get away with adding a little bit of alcohol. And we're going to use the aspirator motor at 50%. We're going to disconnect the tube on the back of the filter and basically suction it in to the aspirator and suction it. It's going to go out. So you need a collection vessel on the back side to collect that dirty water. And you're going to keep doing this until it's clean and goes clear. The same can be done with the outlet filter. We have a configuration guide, which shows us whether we're going to work in open mode or closed mode. So to just summarize, we have 100% water to 0, 100% solvent to 0. The spray dryer by itself can safely handle up to 20% in your mixture. That's probably the most popular setup is open mode. Second most popular is closed mode with the dryer in combination with the inner loop. And then if you have mixtures, you can use all three along with the dehumidifier. So the dryer, like I said, fair game, 20% solvent, open to the atmosphere is safe. The inner loop allows you to work safely with solvents, and the unit has safety lockouts for both pressure, meaning do I have a clean filter, and oxygen. When I'm working in closed mode, having a nice clean filter and clean and working nozzle is really imperative, on top of having nice new gaskets. Okay, I can also add up to 10% water in my formulation safely for this mode. The inner loop definitely takes a little more time and finesse. You need to take extra care in mounting your glassware, meaning all of my seals need to be properly placed. The seals need to be clean and in good repair. If I was working in closed mode on a weekly basis, I would have new gaskets every year. Your quick connects need to be tight. Your external gas source, I recommend starting at about 100 PSI, even though we have a greater working range that we recommend. I think all of our service engineers would vote for 100 PSI at minimum for your nitrogen coming in. Make sure that your waste solvent, the drain vessel on the inner loop itself, is open. You need to empty it and consider having it being vented to an exhaust or a fume hood. And when you turn on the system, you want to make sure that your oxygen and pressure sensor lights are both illuminated upon startup. That is key. Once you see both those lights come on, then we recommend turning on your nitrogen. And this is basically just a safety feature. The instrument wants to detect that both of these sensors are working. So the O2 sensors have a shelf life, and we are saying that shelf life is about 18 months. Doesn't mean they can't go a little bit longer, but let's write an SOP for us to change them on a regular basis so that we can continue to work. You can't buy them ahead of time because they do have a shelf life. They'll start to decay even if they're not on the instrument themselves. You can do this yourself, or you can have a PM done by our service team. The O2 sensors can be calibrated via the O2 analyzer, and that is also shown how to do that in the manual. So summary for success is essentially keeping it clean is really your best defense. I would look at this, there's a lot of glass to this instrument. There's a lot of gaskets. Think of it as, having a nice dinner and having fine china and taking care of it at the end of the day. Start and end every run with water or solvent. Have proper space to clean up your glassware. It's easy to break something that's this big. Change your outlet filter. Buy appropriate size brushes from both a length and a diameter so that you can appropriately clean. Your tubing, your filter, your gaskets, these are considered consumables. I look at these similar to your car. You're going to change your oil. You're going to change the oil filter. You may have to change some gaskets. You may have to change some different items to make it continue to run appropriately. This is the same. The aspirator really should be cleaned on a regular or periodically, especially if you know that you have free vapor phase or you have sticky products. So what can we do to help you? Our service team is regional. We offer preventative maintenance or BUCHI care maintain. We have do-it-yourself PM kits as well. If you think you're well-versed, possibly you can do it yourself. As I said, we have a service depot to rebuild nozzles. We have BUCHI Academy. We have a team here in Newcastle who can do application training for you, both here in-house in our office. We have a brand new lab, or on site at your facility if you rather. We'll even do special trainings if a whole group wants to come here particularly for something. The dryer itself is too big to particularly ship to Delaware, so they're going to come to you if there's something that really needs a repair. And we offer training in Delaware from time to time. So my next spray dryer training, it's about a day and a half. I can do probably about 5 people at max, is Tuesday and Wednesday, October 2nd and 3rd. So at this point, I'm just about finished, and we're going to head on to questions. I'm going to leave this last slide up so that you have my phone number and my email. And let's take a few questions if we can. Someone is asking about the cleaning procedure for the aspirator itself. They were asking, can the procedure damage the aspirator blower? It should not do that. It's recommended to do that from time to time. Okay. And how much water should you flush at the end of a run? I usually do just enough to sort of clean out the tubing, maybe 20 mils or so, enough that you're seeing that the feed tube has been cleaned out as well. Someone asked if I could talk a little bit more about removing the flange or gasket of the cyclone itself. Basically, I'm recommending that you don't do it, but there's actually an O-ring that you can, or a gasket that you can remove, and an O-ring itself. You kind of have to sit over a tabletop to pull it off and put it back on so that you don't break the cyclone. Someone was asking, what is the minimum house air pressure you recommend for open mode? We say 75 to 120 PSI is fine working range. That's not an issue at all, okay? It's more for closed mode. And if you're less at closed mode, you just need to make sure that your nozzle is nice and clean as well. Someone is asking about whether we still offer PMs for older spray dryers? And the answer is that no, they are essentially discontinued. And we would recommend that you work with your local service or sales engineer to possibly do a trade-in. Someone is asking, how long does a filter last from a lifespan perspective? And I think that's really depends on what you're, using with it. You're going to see a greater pressure drop over the system. And when you're seeing a high pressure drop when you're turning it on, that's time to throw it away. Someone is asking, can the aspirator be completely cleaned with 100% alcohol? I'm not so sure that I would do that. I would just do a percentage of alcohol, just as if it was open mode. So I would say 20%. Someone is saying in their lab they're always using 100%. Is there any criteria for not using 100%? No. The only time I would not use 100% is if I want to increase the residence time. The lower that I go on the aspirator, the longer the residence time. Okay, so if I'm making really big particles, maybe I want it to dry longer. So somebody is asking, why do fuses blow? Well, a fuse is blowing most likely because you have the dirty aspirator. I mean, fuses blow because it's protecting itself, essentially, okay? Someone was asking, is it okay to vent the aspirator to the lab? That's fine as well. It's nice if you have can bring it to a fume hood, but if you have a big enough lab environment and have a big ventilated area, I think that as well is fine as well. Someone is asking about getting higher weight loading in a feed. Well, the bottom line is it's more about viscosity, okay? So we have a max viscosity of about 400 centipoise. The tube is 2 millimeters. So the trick is getting it to and through the nozzle. So eventually you're just gonna have a cutoff of what, the system can handle being fed in. I think it depends on what you're trying to do. Okay. So I think that's about all the questions for today. If there's something that I missed, we'll follow up. I hope that this was informative to everyone. We're going to follow up with these 2 videos and try to promote some of you getting some PMs. And I think, every 18 to 24 months, especially if you're in closed mode, might be too long to wait. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your attention and have a great day. Thank you.